Alright everyone, now it's time for the big item of the day, which is on DACA. Some people are saying, ooh, Trump is selling out. He gave Schumer and Pelosi basically amnesty for some of the dreamers, and he didn't even get wall funding in return. Then I have some people saying, oh, Sticks, you said he'd get wall funding. But then he comes out and clarifies, which is what I suspected would happen. Oh no, well this is a totally separate issue. This is just about DACA in a vacuum. You see, I think what he's doing is throwing a little bit of a bone to the neoliberals. He can't work with the far left or the never-Trump neocons. So he's got to work with at least a handful of Democrats at this point. That means the negotiations get a little bit more tricky. In some ways, they actually get easier in others, because you got to remember, Trump ultimately is a centrist business Democrat. He's not a far-righter. He's not. He's not a fascist. He's not even a neocon. He's further left than the average neocon would be on a host of issues, minus guns and perhaps taxes and business. On that, he would be further right. He'd be further right, right-wing, supposedly, on the issue of like politically correct speech and censorship or something. He doesn't really apparently want to censor things, and just wants to be even-handed, which is a good thing. Here's the thing. And it goes along with my prediction about the DACA negotiations. He has to sweeten the deal a little bit for some of the Democrats. It was natural that the first step in this would be to give them the most obvious thing that he would probably agree with them on, which is, hey, somebody who came here into this country while very young, yeah, we're not going to deport them. And I said he probably wouldn't, and this would probably be part of the solution, and I support it, by the way. I have no problem with it. The next step will probably be, if I had to guess, the next most logical step anyway, would be to give them people who have served in the armed forces, even if they didn't come here while very young, they served in the U.S. Armed Forces, to grant them some sort of status, some conditional status, continuance. That may be where he gets the basis of his wall funding. Now you've got to remember, he got the first, what was it, 1.7 billion or something, to explore the feasibility and lay some of the groundwork. He already got that months ago. He needs the next infusion of cash to begin filling in those gaps in our border defense system. And he also got something in this agreement that nobody appears to be talking about, which is increased border security. That means ICE. That's a good first step. That's a pretty good exchange for those who came here while very young being allowed to stay. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, no. If he's going to grant amnesty to anyone, he needs to have the wall built. I agree. We do need the wall. But you don't, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't get there in one big negotiation where you have some omnibus passed where Trump gets these 3 things and the Democrats get these 2 things and Rand Paul gets this, one project. He wants a macrame redecoration for his office. That's not how Trump works. It's in stages, because at every stage you have to posture. You also have to pull back a little bit and say, oh, I'm not so sure about it. Keep your enemies a little bit nervous. Or not enemies, but competitors in a political sense. That's what he's doing to the Democrats. That's why the White House comes out and says, well, this wasn't part of the deal. No, we deny this totally. Keep people on their toes. So he gets a little bit of extra security. That is the actual, like, the ICE agents and stuff. He gets that in exchange for, yeah, some people who came here when they were very young. We're going to overlook it. They continue in residency. They don't have anything to worry about. The next step, if I had to guess, would be veterans and perhaps, 1 or 2 other very limited classes of people, maybe skilled workers, someone who's worked as a paramedic or something. They can stay also, but he wants something else. What is it he'll want? Where does he add the border wall funding? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know he wants it. It was one of his main platforms. If he doesn't inevitably get it, at least in part, started, in the first couple years of his first term, he's fucked. I think he knows this. His core fans won't accept that, but he can come out right now and say, hey, we've begun the deal-making process. Look at it this way. Did you think of it like this? Obama, almost inevitably when he was president, didn't work with the legislature. He governed by executive order while the legislature was completely strangulated. He wouldn't work with them. The Republicans and Democrats wouldn't work with each other. What's Trump doing? Supposedly the most divisive president, the most unpopular person, the horrible fascist bigot, and yet he's working with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer successfully. He actually got something out of them. Wow, it's almost like government works that way. Like you're supposed to negotiate when you don't have a supermajority everywhere and the ability to do whatever the hell you want. You have to work with others in order to get something accomplished. But Trump's mostly the one getting what he wants inevitably out of these deals because, of course, the Republicans do have the upper hand in the House and the Senate. He simply has to pacify some of the never-Trump forces that are seeking to sort of moderate the argument. And that's fine. I see Ben Garrison, of all people, saying, oh, don't make a deal with the swamp. He has to. He doesn't have another option. Otherwise, he goes down that very dark imperialistic path that Obama was led down, where he says, no, I'm just going to do what I want. And as soon as he is gone, Trump comes along and erases basically everything he did with the stroke of a pen because none of it had a legislative permanent solution to it, including on DACA. Under Obama, DACA was nothing more than an executive order saying we're going to ignore our existing immigration laws in a handful of cases out of a sense of morality and because it's popular among Obama's fans, essentially. That's what it was. Now DACA will be legislative. It will not be everything that Obama or the Democrats wanted it to be. And in order to work towards something approximating that, and it won't even be all of what they want, Trump is going to extract tribute from the Democratic Party. He's going to force them to enable more border security. He's going to force them to enable certain types of deportation. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he goes after sanctuary cities via the legislature because he realizes he's not been able to do that in an executive fashion successfully. Technically, the courts are on his side in many ways on sanctuary cities. They're still stonewalling. In order to work around that, he needs the legislature involved. It'll be difficult, but I think he can do it. And when he does, enter those sanctuary cities and begin deporting criminals who should not be in this country, and granting de facto amnesty to certain small classes of people under the DREAM Act who haven't committed any further crimes, and they know the lingo, maybe they were here when they were 2 or something. His fans very quickly will forgive him when they realize he's actually successfully funded his wall and cracked down on sanctuary cities. Those are the big things. What did you care more about? Oh, let's deport people now so they can come back because we don't have a wall, or we can grant residency to some people, build the wall, and we don't have this fucking problem in the future. Which one do you think long-term is going to be more successful? We've already tried the, hey, we're going to deport a bunch of people strategy. Unless the border wall's built, it won't work. It will never work. It'll never be successful. And a lot of people drag their heels on it. The Democrats still seek to use racial and ethnic wedge issues to wage elections. It's no longer working so well, but they're still trying. The never-Trumpers now realize the weakness of the Democrats. They think the ultimate strategy should be, hey, we're going to be the ones to use these wedge issues now. Now we inherit them. Bad idea, by the way. It won't work. Trump's not selling out on DACA. He's trying to negotiate with the people he can negotiate with. He's got most of the Republicans on board with what he wants to do because they're either partisan or they're populistic in nature. They're like Tea Partiers. He can work with them at a whim on such an issue. He doesn't have a problem, but he has to get at least a few Democrats on board. The never-Trumpers won't work with him. They're actually going further left than Pelosi and Schumer. You do realize this, right? Pelosi and Schumer right now are more receptive towards granting Trump some of the stuff he wants to get a permanent legislative solution in order to save the legacy of DACA than the never-Trumpers are. He's working with some of the Democrats, and he's going to be successful, I think. That's not selling out. That's called negotiating in stages because it's easier than doing it all at once. You do it all at once. Obama tried this too. It's like with the ACA. Oh yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of legislation hammered out by committee after committee, bureau after bureau, a half a dozen pharma companies, a bunch of consultants and lawyers. It was a shitfest. It was so confusing, such an abomination, such an amalgamation of weird crap that it just doesn't work. Trump doesn't want to do that. He wants to simplify things. So he says, hey, I'm sending DACA to the legislature. And a lot of people say, oh no, he's going to let the legislature grant amnesty. You do realize that the people in Congress who actually support blanket amnesty without a wall or without any additional border security are a minority, right? Including among the neocons and neoliberals. Trump knows this. He's not dumb. He knows what he's doing. And he's successful. He's already extracted some negotiating from them in only a few days. It didn't even take that long. I thought it'd take him months. He's going faster than I expected. Just wait. Give him time. I mean, Jesus, you think you would do better? Yeah, you're the president. You'd say, oh, yeah, well, I want this, this, and this. You think you're going to get it? No, you got to negotiate. You got to shake hands and exchange pleasantries. It's the way these weirdos work. It's the way DC works. It's regrettable. It would be nice if things could be more autocratic at times when it's needed, but unfortunately, then you go down the path of statism, and then autocracy seeps in where it's not a good thing. That's something to be avoided. Some people have said, oh, invoke the nuclear option for anything you want. Just run roughshod over the Democrats. Even that wouldn't work. There are too many. Just John McCain and Lindsey Graham alone would stand in the way. Just two people. Rand stands in the way sometimes. And some of that's he inherited from that father, from his father, Ron Paul. Sometimes it's a very good thing. If it's on surveillance or the police state or anything like that, I fully support him. When it's on taxes, I generally would fully support him. When it's on immigration reform, I'm not so sure I do coincide with that argument, because he's kind of got something in common with the open border libertarians, so-called. Not sure how I feel about that. I generally oppose it. Not completely, but generally. Free movement is a little bit different from, hey, anybody can come in, we don't even care if you're a serial arsonist or something like that. No, he's negotiating with the Democrats. It's what we hired him for. Most of Trump's fans did not hire him to simply say, well, I'm going to be such an imperialist, I'm going to unilaterally deport everyone, as though it would be legal for him to do so. I'm immediately building the wall, I don't care where the money comes from, and I'm going to throw everyone in jail and basically be Führer. That's not what the average Trump voter voted for him for. No, the far left casts it off as that, and some of Trump's fans, a slim minority of them, actually believed it and voted for him because of that, because they want him to do so. It's not what he's going to do. And you'll see in due time, as he continues to be negotiator-in-chief, his approval will likely rise. It will be before the midterms that it begins. After that, it'll continue to rise. If the Democrats do carry the midterms, his approval will probably rise faster, because then there will be actual opposition that he can say is obstructing him. Even then, he'll probably be able to negotiate. It's just the never-Trumpers he can't negotiate with, because they refuse to work with him. Even if he gives them what they want, they won't accept it because it came from Trump. That's their problem. They're the ones that are going to get endangered in their office. Now, he's successfully working with Nancy Pelosi, somebody who essentially referred to him as the next Adolf Hitler in previous terms. Yeah, he's doing okay. All things considered, he's doing all right at the moment. Don't worry about DACA. This is the first stage of his negotiations. What did I say? Well, it might be in stages, take some time. It's taking less time than I expected. He will get wall funding and or cracking down on sanctuary cities out of this. Inevitably, he'll get those, because they're big topics for him. The Democrats realize that in order to salvage most of what DACA was, and get it in a legislative fashion, to have Trump's blessing and not veto it, because they can't get it otherwise. And they've got 6 months to hammer it out, he says, otherwise they'll tackle it in an executive fashion. And then, trust me, it'd be far different. In order to avoid that, they need to give him a lot of what he wants on immigration. There might be other things involved, too. That's how you negotiate. He's getting almost everything he wants out of this over time. They're just salvaging something that was already in effect. They don't gain anything. They just save and salvage DACA. He gets probably a bunch of border wall funding, gets to go after sanctuary cities, gets additional border security. Well, I'd say he made out like a bandit if he manages to get all of those things. But it's going to be done in stages. It's going to take some time. That's about all. Peace out.